Hi, I'm Maura. My sister humiliated me at her engagement party, publicly, brutally, and the worst part? Her fiancé used to be mine. But this isn't just about a love triangle. It's about years of being erased, rewritten, made small so she could shine. Ever felt like your family only loves the version of you they can control? Have you ever stayed quiet to keep the peace and lost yourself in the process? What time are you listening to this, and where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story travels. And if something in my voice feels familiar, maybe this story is yours too. I stepped out of the rental car, the heat of Savannah wrapping around me like a secret no one warned me about. The front porch looked the same, white columns, perfectly pruned hedges, the same brass knocker my father polished every Sunday. But something had shifted. Maybe it was me. The door swung open before I could knock. "Maura!" my mother sang out, her smile a half-inch too wide. "You look rested." Rested. Not good, not lovely, just rested. Like a corpse. The hallway smelled like lemons and old wood, a cocktail of childhood and obligation. Everything was exactly as I remembered, down to the photo frames lining the wall, family portraits where I was always a step out of frame. In the living room, Brielle stood like the centerpiece she always was. Flowing silk dress, shoes too delicate for anyone else's budget. Her arm curled possessively around the man beside her. And there he was, Dane, or as I had known him 3 years ago, Jacob. The man who had made me believe in Vermont cabins, used bookstores, and love that lasted longer than autumn. His eyes found mine, and for a split second the room vanished. I could still feel his hands on my waist, the way he whispered evergreen, like it was our secret promise. And then it was gone, buried beneath Brielle's perfectly manicured fingers. "Maura," she cooed, as if she were introducing me to a stranger. "This is Dane, my fiancé." I didn't blink. I smiled. I swallowed the acid rising in my throat. "We've met," I said, calm as snow. Dane stiffened. Brielle didn't notice. Dinner was served with crystal glasses and tension thick enough to spread on toast. Conversations danced around politics, weddings, weather, the usual southern deflections. Then came the clink. My mother tapped her glass with a dessert fork. "Maura," she purred, "would you mind saying a few words? You've always had such a way with them." I froze, fork halfway to my lips. A few words. In front of the man I once loved. In front of the woman who took him. Brielle leaned closer, eyes shining. "You don't mind, do you? It's not like you're doing anything else important this weekend." I stood slowly, napkin falling to the floor. The room stilled. I began, voice steady. "Weddings are about beginnings. About believing, maybe foolishly, that love fixes what's broken." I could have stopped there. I should have. But Brielle laughed. "Oh, Maura, still single, still quoting poetry. I swear this is your real talent, being everyone's maid of honor." Laughter. Some polite, some cruel. I heard my name twisted in it, bent into something I didn't recognize. I turned to Dane. He looked pale, silent. I looked at Brielle, who sparkled under the chandelier, unaware that the ground beneath her was shifting. I smiled. "There's more to this story than she wants you to know." The door clicked shut behind me like it was sealing a vault. Downstairs, laughter trickled through the vents. Sharp, shallow, the kind of laughter that never included me. I didn't take off my shoes. I didn't change out of the dress. I just stood there in the middle of my old bedroom, not recognizing the girl who once slept here. The slideshow kept looping in my head. That photo, me at 7, soaked in punch, dress torn at the side after a birthday meltdown no one bothered to help me through. My lip had been trembling, eyes red. I remember how small I felt in that moment. I still feel it now. "She was always a bit dramatic," Brielle had said into the mic, her tone syrupy. The guests laughed, softly at first, then louder. That polite southern laughter that cuts sharper than a blade. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my journal. The pen hovered. Nothing came out. My hand clenched so tightly I could see the blood pull back from my knuckles. How long have I been the joke? When did I become the entertainment instead of the daughter? The silence in the room wrapped around me like cotton, but it didn't soothe. It smothered. 16 years ago, I sat alone on the night of my PhD graduation, Chinese takeout in a paper bag, candlelit more out of irony than celebration. My mother had promised to come. I'd saved her a seat. But Brielle had a skin reaction, a mild one, and that was that. I stared at the uneaten lo mein, the graduation cap tossed in a corner, and thought, maybe some wins don't count unless they come with applause. The journal pages blurred. I shut the book, still blank, just like back then. In the mirror, I looked older, tired but more awake than I had been in years. The girl in the slideshow wouldn't recognize me, but she'd understand. This ends soon, or it ends me, I said, softly but out loud, as if saying it would keep me from backing down. My phone buzzed, a text from Ezra. Meet me tomorrow. I found something you should see. I didn't ask what. I didn't need to. Whatever it was, it would be the beginning of the end. The cafe smelled like burnt cinnamon and ink. Ezra was already seated when I walked in, thumbing through a vintage book of black and white photographs. He didn't look up. He didn't need to. I slid into the seat across from him, stomach tight. Bailey's Jewelers, he said, closing the book softly. I stopped by yesterday. My mouth was dry. And? He pulled a folded receipt from his jacket and slid it across the table. I didn't touch it. The owner remembered Dane, Ezra continued. Came in 2 months ago. Asked for an emerald cut reset. Same stone, same setting. He even asked them to keep the inscription. I stared at him. What inscription? He looked at me. A flicker of apology in his eyes. Evergreen. Always. The words landed like a punch. That phrase didn't belong to her. It was never hers. 3 years ago, we stood outside that same jewelry store, laughing in the rain. I'd been cold. He'd wrapped his coat around me, his fingers grazing mine. Inside, he pointed to that exact ring, the green stone, the tiny leaves etched on the band. It's understated, he said. Like you don't scream to be seen. That's what makes you unforgettable. I didn't believe him then. I do now. Back in the cafe, I folded the receipt without reading it. I didn't need to. The past was no longer just memory. It was evidence. Later that day, at the brunch my mother insisted on hosting, Brielle raised her left hand like it was a trophy. Dane picked it himself, she beamed. Isn't it perfect? The ring sparkled under the dining room light, and I felt something inside me crack. Same stone, same shape, same phrase, carved into gold. Dane sat beside her, posture perfect, hands clenched beneath the tablecloth. He never looked at me, but I watched his thumb rub the inside of his palm, a nervous tick I hadn't seen in years. Ezra caught my eye from across the room. I texted him beneath the table. He remembers. But he won't speak. My phone buzzed once in reply. Just one word. Coward. Brielle raised her glass and smiled wider than necessary. To second chances? I smiled back, lips tight. Whose chance is this, really? The glass walls of Brielle's agency office reflected everything back at me. My pinched expression, my clenched jaw, the version of myself I didn't want to see anymore. The receptionist smiled with professional indifference and waved me through. She probably thought I was here to help plan the floral arrangements. Brielle sat behind her desk, laptop open, a branded mug in her hand that read, Boss Energy. She didn't look up until I dropped my bag on the chair across from her. Maura, finally, she said, tapping her screen. I wanted to go over the program for the engagement party, especially your little speech. I paused. My speech? She turned the laptop toward me. My name was at the top of the document, but nothing else was mine. Gone were the lines I had written in the dark of my bedroom, the ones that hinted at complexity, at nuance. In their place? Brielle has always been the light of our family, and her strength inspires me daily. I didn't write this. You wrote the draft, she said, smiling like a dentist before a drill. I just gave it some polish. This is a celebration, not a therapy session. I wanted to flip the laptop. Instead, I just stared. You rewrote me, she shrugged. You're overthinking it. You always do. I left without another word, but my hands were shaking. I could still hear her voice in my head, syrupy, smug. By the time the sun was sinking behind the house, I had returned to the guest bedroom. The email with her final version sat unread in my inbox. I opened it, skimmed, deleted. Then I started a new document, titled it, what I really wanted to say. Before I could finish the first line, a knock came at the door. Brielle didn't wait for permission. She stepped inside, arms crossed like she owned the wallpaper. "Just wanted to check in," she said. "No hard feelings, right?" I didn't answer. She kept going. "Look, I get it. You've got your own stuff going on. But this weekend is about me, about us. Can we not make it messy?" Then came the dagger, wrapped in silk. "Mom's blood pressure hasn't been great, and frankly, people are tired of the moody sister routine. You wouldn't want to ruin the family's image. Again." I didn't move. "You're good with words," she said, voice sweet like poison. "So just stick to the ones I picked." She left, closing the door gently behind her. I sat back down, heart pounding like it was fighting to be heard. And then I whispered, "Rewrite me again, Brielle. I dare you." I hit print. Janelle didn't say a word as she slid into the passenger seat. She wore a hoodie too large for her, sleeves hiding her knuckles. Her lips were tight, eyes unreadable. She handed me a USB drive like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "You'll want headphones," she said, then got out. No goodbyes, just the quiet click of the door shutting behind her. I sat there a moment, heart somewhere between curiosity and dread. Then I pressed play. It was Brielle's voice, careless and sharp, laced with laughter. "Of course I knew. That's why I moved so fast. If I hadn't jumped on him, she would have ruined it like everything else. I mean, come on. It's not like she ever finishes anything." The air left my lungs. My hands clenched around the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. She hadn't just stolen Dane. She'd stolen the choice from both of us. Deliberately, strategically. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I drove. 20 minutes across town, past the mall, past the gas stations, to a row of dull metal doors and forgotten memories. My storage unit was colder than I remembered. I opened the box labeled Journals plus Random and sifted through old receipts, scribbled poems, a broken lamp I never fixed. Then I found it. The journal with the leather cover, edges burned like someone had tried to destroy it and gave up halfway. I flipped through the remaining pages, torn entries, memories half erased. 10 years ago, I walked into my dorm room to find Brielle reading it. She smiled like she'd been caught doing something silly. "This is good," she said. "You should write more." A week later, it was gone. Back in the car, I placed the journal on the seat beside me and stared through the windshield. Everything she'd ever taken, she'd done it quietly, with a smile, with grace, with strategy. This wasn't about Dane. It had never been just about him. It was every version of me I was never allowed to be, every voice she edited, every moment I was asked to make smaller so she could shine bigger. "She doesn't get to write my story anymore," I whispered. And that's when I knew what to do. Back home, I pulled out my laptop, drafted a new email. Subject: family speech revisions. No greeting, no sign-off. Just the audio file attached. No explanation. I hit send. Ezra's studio smelled like cedar and old film, something honest. He handed me a folder, his expression tight. "Client contract Stone Agency," it read. Inside, a glossy proposal. Long-term photography deal, travel coverage, brand features, and a clause, highlighted. No personal involvement with Maura Fielding. "She wanted to own your surroundings," Ezra said, quiet. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The silence said enough. Later that evening, the garden behind the Fielding house glittered with rented lights and fake laughter. The pre-wedding rehearsal dinner, but stripped of any real joy. I stood near the back, watching as Brielle grabbed Ezra's arm and pulled him into the spotlight. "This is our official photographer," she purred, raising her glass. "And Dane's close friend, of course." "Not mine, not anymore." Ezra glanced at me, just for a second, then looked away. The crowd clapped. Brielle beamed. I felt it, like glass cracking under heat. Quiet, invisible, fatal. 2 years ago, Ezra and I sat on my fire escape after midnight, both of us barefoot and broke. "You're the one honest thing left in that house," he said. "Don't let them bury that too." Back in the present, he moved. Ezra walked across the lawn, straight to me. No hesitation this time. "I didn't take the deal," he said. "I know. I should have told you. You just did." He turned toward the crowd, lifted his glass. For those asking, yes, I've known Maura for 15 years, and I always will. Every neck turned. Brielle didn't smile this time. 10 minutes later, she cornered me by the fountain. What was that? A fact, I said. Something that doesn't shift based on your guest list. You're playing victim again. I leaned in, voice low. You're not the protagonist of this family anymore. Her eyes narrowed. I walked away before she could respond. Back in my room, I opened my phone, composed an email. No poetry, no diplomacy. Subject: some things I won't let slide anymore. The dining room table stretched like a runway of lies, all gloss and silver. My mother had gone full Martha Stewart. Polished forks, gold-rimmed china, place cards in cursive script. I sat directly across from Dane. He looked like a groom in a hostage video. Brielle floated between guests like a hostess on a talk show. Hand on every shoulder, story at every corner. She called me darling twice and didn't make eye contact once. I barely touched my food. Neither did Dane. Under the table, I texted Janelle. Did you find it? Her reply came quick. After dessert. Dane followed me into the hallway when I slipped away. His voice was low but not soft. I knew, he said. I turned. Knew what? The ring, the inscription, the meaning. I remembered all of it. My throat tightened, but I said nothing. I didn't choose her, he said. I just couldn't choose you. Not without setting off a war. You thought you'd honor me with silence? He looked down. I thought if I kept a piece of it, the ring, the line, we'd still exist somewhere. Don't confuse sentiment with love, I said. Janelle intercepted me near the coat rack as people began leaving. She handed me a folded sheet of paper. You need to read this. It was an email, dated months ago, from Dane. I'm sorry, it began. I never stopped loving you. I was stupid. Please, let's talk. But the address wasn't mine. It was close, one character off, a subtle typo. I stared at it, confused. Janelle whispered. She logged into Mom's laptop that week. I checked the IP logs. I looked at her. She rerouted the email? Janelle nodded once. She knew. She made sure you'd never see it. The hallway felt smaller. I could hear Brielle laughing inside. Same laugh from the slideshow, from my nightmares. I didn't go in. Not yet. I waited, then walked back, smiling. Sat down like nothing had happened. But my spine was straight, my hands steady. Tomorrow I speak. This time I won't be edited. The table was set like we were royalty. Crystal glinted, candles flickered, but nothing in that room felt warm. My mother sat at the head like a judge, eyes unreadable. Brielle sparkled beside her, radiant in a gold dress that caught the light every time she tossed her hair. Dane sat next to her, shoulders tight, lips pressed shut. I took my place in silence. No one asked me how I was. As the main course was cleared, Constance raised her glass. We are so proud of Brielle, she said, voice calm, clipped. Our golden girl, always leading the way. My fork stopped midair. Janelle's gaze darted toward me. Dane exhaled so slowly it was nearly soundless. Ezra didn't blink. His fingers drummed the tablecloth like a countdown. I stood. Brielle looked at me with a practiced smile. Going to toast me again? I didn't answer. I pulled out the folded page from my purse and opened it. I wrote this days ago, I began, before it was edited without my consent, before I was told what I could and couldn't say in my own voice. No one moved. I was asked to speak on sisterhood, so I will. I read it all, the real version, the one that spoke of love and theft, of invisible wounds, of being erased and still surviving. I said her name. I said mine. Dane didn't move. My mother didn't stop me. Brielle just stared. When I finished, I folded the page and sat down. Nobody clapped. Nobody breathed. Phones had been lifted. I didn't need to look to know they were recording. By midnight, Janelle had texted me a link. A TikToker named Layla Morgan had clipped the speech and posted it with a caption. This is what reclaiming your voice looks like. The comments were firecrackers. She just said what I felt my whole life. My sister did the same thing. Finally, someone cracked the pretty dinner party facade. My phone vibrated nonstop. I looked up from the screen to see Brielle standing in the hallway, her expression twisted into something raw. You think this is over? She said. You just declared war. The notifications started before the sun came up. My phone lit up in bursts, one after another, like an alarm that couldn't be silenced. Videos, comments, headlines. Sister silenced no more. TikTok explodes over family confession. I didn't read the rest. I just stared at my screen until the blue light blurred into static. A single message from Dane. I'll leave quietly. You deserve the air. From Brielle. Nothing. Not even a full stop. Just scene. I took my time getting ready. No makeup, no mask. Just me and a calm I hadn't felt in years. I drove to the house on autopilot, knowing the conversation wouldn't change anything but still needing to have it. Constance opened the door in her silk robe, lipstick already perfect. She paused, eyes cold and calculating, then stepped aside. The dining room was pristine, like nothing had been shaken. Plates aligned, napkins folded, the same portrait of us on the wall. Brielle front and center, me just out of frame. You embarrass this family, she said, her voice brittle. I didn't sit. No, I just stopped pretending. She didn't respond, just turned away, like she had more important things to do. I walked through that house one last time. Every corner still smelled like lemon polish and repression. I didn't take anything with me. Later, at the cafe near the square, Dane asked to meet. I meant everything I said, he told me, eyes unsteady. Back then, last night, all of it. I know, I replied, but I need peace more than I need answers. He nodded once. Didn't fight. That maybe was the apology. Ezra called that afternoon. You want me to take it down? He asked. No, I said. Let it live. Let it echo. Janelle hugged me outside the studio, tighter than I expected. Thank you, she whispered, for saying what none of us could. I didn't cry. Not this time. By nightfall, I was driving north. I had booked the cabin weeks ago, long before I realized I'd need it. The lake was still. The silence didn't scare me anymore. I opened the box with my old journals, now filled with someone else's edits and flames. I placed a new one on the table. Unwritten, undeniably mine. This time, the story begins with me. Some stories don't end in revenge. Some end in reclaiming. Looking back, I realized that silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it's survival. But at some point, survival becomes surrender. And that's when you have to choose yourself. I learned that my voice wasn't too much. It was just inconvenient for people who wanted me quiet. And reclaiming it didn't make me cruel. It made me free. Maybe you've been the person who kept peace by erasing yourself. Maybe you've been told to shrink so someone else could shine. If you've ever been there, I see you. You're not alone. What would you say if no one could edit your words? If this story moved you or made you feel seen, drop a 1 inch in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't, I'd still love to hear your perspective. What didn't land for you and why? And hey, if you're into stories that hit you right in the truth, consider subscribing to the channel. There's more where this came from.